Hey guys, welcome back to more family relationship drama stories. In this video, my psychopath brother cut me out of our parents' will and I honestly have no idea what to do. Let's dive right into the story to see what happened. The title story starts like this. So my older brother is a complete narcissistic psychopath who doesn't care about what anybody else feels or who he might hurt in order to get what he wants. He thinks that he is smarter than everybody else that he comes across, and being related to him has always been a struggle because of this. He saw and treated me as stupid and beneath him for my entire life, and I knew when I moved away I was not gonna want much to do with him anymore. Our father died when we were both college-aged, so it's just the two of us and our mother. He lives with her due to his struggles of keeping a job due to his personality being a turnoff when he did manage to find a job or an interview. He felt like that he was more entitled to get everything after my mother died and knew that the will she currently had was labeled as the two of us basically splitting everything right down the middle. I visited my mom when I could, but being in the same room as my brother felt like torture. He acted like he knew more about my profession than I did, despite having no education or experience in the field. I'm a teacher, by the way, and he would suggest crazy things like to get a kid to behave, take away bathroom privileges, or take away their lunch. For context, these are third graders, by the way, just sadistic things that make me feel sick, so visits to my mom were not as often as I would like. What we both knew was that she was starting to lose her mental faculties. It was not full-blown dementia yet, but it was very easy for my brother to manipulate or gaslight her into thinking that she did something or did not do something that she did. This must have given him some kind of sick idea to cut me out of her will. Since I wasn't around much, he decided to convince my mom that I was dead and to update her will to remove me from it. So yes, he actually made an 82-year-old woman go through the trauma of losing her child when the entire thing was fake. He even somehow created a fake death certificate by taking my dad's and editing it around to make it look like it. He even made fake cards about my death and convinced my mom that she had forgotten an entire series of events. He made her believe that she had been there at the hospital seeing me die, was at my funeral, hosted family and friends, etc. It was just disgusting how far he went for this lie, and I knew the entire time that he felt good about the entire thing and proud of himself for doing it. He made sure to block my number so I couldn't call, and when I did want to go over, kept making excuses why I couldn't to make sure that I did not see her. That did not work indefinitely, as I clearly found out what he had done at one point. My mom was getting worse, so a couple times I did visit and nothing strange happened. She just forgot that I was meant to be dead, and once I left he would go right back into gaslighting her. One day though that was different, and I went over without calling first since I didn't know that I was blocked and just getting sent to a full mailbox. I'd gotten my mom a present since it was her birthday the week before and I was not able to get off work to take the drive over. When she saw me she started to cry and called it a miracle and that I had come back to life. She was a mess and it took a long time to get it out of her that she was convinced by someone that I was dead. My brother naturally tried to manipulate that situation as well, claiming that she was losing it and for some reason thought that I was dead. But my mom actually managed to dig up the death certificate with my name on it and show it to me. I was beyond angry and I knew that my brother was up to something here and was not gonna leave until I found out what else he did. Me, we both know that you did that for a reason beyond just trying to upset her. Brother, I don't have to tell you anything. Me, you wanna upset her into having a heart attack to get your share of the inheritance early or something? Or do you just want the house for yourself and your own mother is just too much of an inconvenience for you? Brother, actually when she croaks I'm getting it all. Me, what are you talking about? He refused to elaborate, knowing that he probably already said too much and I was not dropping it for a single second. I knew the lawyer that ran my mother's estate and called him up to talk to him about whether she had made any changes to her will. He could not tell me specifics, but was also shocked to find out that I was alive. I knew that he made her change her will to give her anything, even if the lawyer was not legally allowed to tell me anything. I found out much later that he had also made himself the controller of her estate, claiming she was not well enough to do it herself. I called my brother on the phone and made sure I was recording the entire thing because I was taking him to court for his whole plan to steal everything for himself. It was not even about the money, but the fact that now my mom was lost in some world where sometimes I was alive and sometimes I was dead. He had broken her fragile mind and I was not gonna let him win with this. On the call I used everything I knew about him to manipulate the master manipulator into admitting that he faked my death certificate and changed the will and got full control of my mom's estate. along with some other colorful language showing he doesn't care about her and only about himself. I brought all of that to a lawyer asking if it was enough to take him to court to try and get my name back on the will, and it actually was. There were a lot of other things that had to happen, like my mom seeing a doctor and finally getting a diagnosis of dementia, which would now prevent her from making any medical or financial decisions for herself again. So it was more important now than ever before to make sure that I was the person in charge of her estate and not my brother. This was not a criminal case, so there was no jury or anything like in the movies. We were just sat around a table with our lawyers and everybody else to sort things out. My phone recording proof was just to show that he did fake my death, and I managed to get that certificate that he made, showing that my mom only removed me from her will under false reasons and that the changes should be void and it be reverted back to the original will. After a lot of boring arguing, it was granted and now I was back on my mom's will, but that was not what I cared about. I wanted to be the person in charge of her care and decision making, and after more arguments it was decided that I was the better person for it. Not due to my brother's mental issues or the fact that he lied or any of that, it was because I had a stable job and no clear ulterior motives aside from wanting what was best for my mom. I decided she needed better care than I could give her, and certainly my brother could give her, so I put her in a home. Her assets got liquidated to pay for it, so my brother not only was not getting the family house, but now did not actually have a better place to live or a person to mooch off of anymore. Honestly, he deserves it for messing with my mom. As for the forged document situation, I will let the DA sort that out and just wait to see if he ends up in jail or not. And yeah, ripe stars, if your brother was as awful as this one, what would you have done if you were no peace shoes? And while you're at it, please also let me know in the comments whether you still enjoy the relationship stories. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I would appreciate that tremendously. The next one is titled, My 19 male brother-in-law, 26 male, is convinced that I'm in love with him. And by the way, ripe stars, a little trigger warning for this story. It's pretty serious, and at one point there's the mention of sexual assault. So please keep that in mind if you are not in the mood to listen to such a serious story. However, I must say, there is a sort of positive ending, if you can say that. Pretty much what the title says. I've never posted on here before, but I do like to read the story sometimes. Let's call my sister Diana and her boyfriend Mike. I'm the youngest of my 3 siblings, Diana and my brother, who we will call Carlos. I came out as gay when I was 14, and my immediate family, my parents and siblings, were all supportive. My extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, etc., are less accepting, so I don't tend to be as out and open around them. I graduated high school and started college 2 years ago when I was 17. I go to the same college that my sister is doing grad school at, and to save costs I've been staying with her and her then fiancé at their apartment. Mike had always been really nice and I was happy that my sister was with a nice guy. My siblings and I have always been super close, and that closeness did not go away when I started living with Diana, so I would often end up hanging out with them and their friends sometimes. The semester just ended for the 2 of us and we all went home this weekend to stay with my parents. We had a big family dinner, during which Mike kept making little jokes about me liking older guys, my boyfriend is 23, and how he would try to keep me away from him and his buddies. Me and my siblings questioned him about these jokes he was making until he finally stopped making them, and that was last night. This morning my siblings and my parents went on a hike, which is a family activity that we usually enjoy thanks to us living close to the woods. I slept in and no one wanted to bother me, so they went without me. I figured that everyone had gone, but when I was eating my cereal in the living room and watching TV, Mike came out of the kitchen and sat next to me. I was surprised to see him as I figured that he would have gone on the hike, but I guess not. He started by apologizing for making fun of me and then said that it was just a nervous tic of his when he didn't want to talk about something serious. He said that it was wrong of him to joke about my crush on him. I was super confused and asked for clarification, and he said that he knew about the crush I have on him, which by the way, I don't. I asked him why he would think that, and he cited a few things that he took as me liking him. Number 1, that I would always hang out with him and Diana. Number 2, that I chose to live with them instead of dorms. And number 3, that he barely knew my boyfriend. And number 4, that I didn't bring my boyfriend to their wedding. I tried to tell him that he was insane and that none of that meant I liked him, and they all had real explanations, but he just insisted that I was just trying to cover up the fact that I was in love with him, and that was a few hours ago. I have not told anyone in my family this yet, and I didn't have lunch with my family since I've had plans to be out with high school friends all day. One friend suggested that I post this here, so I guess that's why I'm doing this. I'll be sure to update if anything serious happens. Update to the story: I spent the night at my friend's house last night. This was planned before any of this, and this morning I woke up and saw all your comments and speculations. I'll reflect on the two main possibilities that you all seem to have come up with. Number one, he's either one of those straight guys that thinks that all gay guys are attracted to him. I definitely met a few of those. Or B, he likes me and is projecting it or trying to make it sound like my idea. After thinking about it a lot, and I think that it's more likely to be the second option, I'm a person who really loves physical displays of affection like hugs and cuddles and stuff, and my siblings and I are super close like I said, so I was used to showing my affection this way. Looking back, I realized that Mike was more than willing to show affection this way, as my sister is the same. Mike and Diana had been dating since high school, but I only really got to know him in the last 2 years at college. He was always open to physical affection with me right off the bat. There have been many comments that he has made that I took as harmless at the time, but now with the context I realize may have been clues. He'd always ask me how he looked like before he went out for the day and would in turn compliment me back. I took things that he said as jokes, like when he told me that my rear looked good in an outfit, or he would tell me that I looked just like my sister, who is gorgeous by the way. I always took this as him being nice, but now I'm not sure if that was his own intention. Anyway, to the actual update. So this morning I called for a sibling meeting at a diner that we like to go to. Sibling meetings are something that we've been doing since we were kids, where we would talk about things like convincing our parents to get us a pet or splitting the household chores. We met at the diner for brunch, and my brother immediately went on and said how weird it was that Mike was making jokes about me. Diana said that he was still making jokes to her privately after dinner, and that it wasn't the first time he had made those types of jokes. She said that she figured that he was one of those guys who thought that gay guys liked him, but then I told them about his apology yesterday morning and all the comments and other jokes he has made, and we all think it's pretty weird. I showed them my post and they briefly read through the comments as well, and my sister said that she had talked to him about it and told me that no matter what happened, she would never hold anything against me or blame me for anything, so, well, that was reassuring. We had food and I went back to my friend's house, and my sister said that she would let me know if anything happens. I also texted my boyfriend about all this. He is British, so we have a bit of a time difference and he hasn't responded yet, but I want to be sure to keep him in the loop as well. I'm currently with my friends watching them play a video game and pretending to know what's going on. And now we got an update to the story. Me and my siblings were all on summer break from college and were home for the summer. So the day after I talked to my siblings at the diner, I returned home from my friend's house and everything seemed pretty normal. My sister informed me that she had talked to her boyfriend and that he had seemed more receptive to her concerns, and he was a lot more calm towards me. He stayed with us until the end of that week, where no further incident occurred between us, before he left to go visit his own family. He's on the complete other side of the country as us. A little after his departure, I noticed that I couldn't find my favorite pair of underwear after doing a load of laundry. At the time I just chalked it up to it being lost in the wash or maybe mixed up with someone else's clothes. They actually wear a pair of pink briefs, and which I find to be more comfortable for my body type than other forms of underwear, and unfortunately for me considered more sexy. I'm sure you can all understand what actually happened to them. My sister only stayed with us for 2 weeks, as her job was only allowing her so much time that she could be remote. From what I knew though, her boyfriend had returned to our apartment around the same time as her. I stayed for the whole month before I had to return to the city, as our college is in, because I'd gotten a summer internship in that city. So I was back to staying with my sister and her boyfriend, and a few weeks into that my sister was out for the night because of her friend's bachelorette party, and her boyfriend was out at a bar with his friends, which left me alone in the apartment for the night. I had a movie night and went to bed early. And by the way, Ripe stars a slight trigger warning for the next slide, because there will be the mention of assault and it's pretty serious. Either way, let's continue. So OP says, I awoke in the middle of the night to my sister's boyfriend in my bed touching me. When he noticed I was awake, he held me down and assaulted me. The whole time he was doing it, he was threatening me and my sister's life, saying that if I told her or anyone, he would kill both of us. My sister ended up staying the night at her friend's place, and her boyfriend assaulted me again before she came home. I was pretty broken by that point, and his threats against our lives were ringing in my ears all the time. This cycle continued when my sister's boyfriend would act withdrawn from me when around others, especially my sister, and then assault me whenever he could, threatening both of our lives if I ever spoke up. It's such a difficult thing to describe. The rational part of your brain tells you that it's just a manipulation tactic, that he was lying, and that I needed to speak up, but the irrational part of my brain was so scared. I don't know if that makes sense to you all, maybe those of you who have been through a similar situation as me might understand. I also began to change, and my usually happy and bubbly personality changing to a more withdrawn, moody and almost depressed one. I took to wearing less revealing clothes, especially at home, think from tank tops and booty shorts to t-shirts and pants, a reminder that this was happening in summer, so my previous wardrobe was better for the weather. About 3 months later in September, when I was back to school and done with the summer internship, my sister was doing laundry one day and decided to surprise me by doing mine too, because she is a sweetheart like that. She also decided to wash my sheets for me, and that's when she saw that there were bloodstains on my sheets. This immediately raised concerns with her, so that day, when I came home from campus, I found my sister on the couch with the sheet next to her. She tentatively asked me if I'd been self-harming, as she herself had been through that struggle. She has scars on her thighs from doing it. She told me that my recent change of mood and the fact that I changed my wardrobe to be more covered up, especially my legs, had her worried. I told her I was not, but could offer no explanation as to why the sheets were bloody. It was then that I broke down and had a huge panic attack. My sister tried to calm me down at first, but when that didn't help and I was still struggling, she decided to take me to the ER. The attack lasted for about 45 minutes, only going away when they gave me some sort of medication to help me calm down. Apologies, my memories from this particular part are a little spotty. Once I calmed down, I was allowed to stay in the hospital room for a bit, and when it was eventually me and my sister, I confessed it all to her. She was extremely comforting and asked me when the last time was that he had assaulted me. It was the night before, so she pressed a little doctor and nurse call thing and told them that I was going to need an assault kit. For those of you who want the specifics of that process, please Google it. After that, I just wanted to go home. My sister took me and left me in her car at first, and then came out and assured that her boyfriend was not there yet. She texted him and told him to not come home, as the two of us were really sick and we did not want to infect him. The next day, instead of going to our classes, she took me to our local police station to file a police report. This whole process was long and laborious, and honestly my memory surrounding it is all kind of hazy, something my therapist says can happen with traumatic experiences, but with the evidence found from the assault kit and my testimony, he got a sentence of 4 years and a fine, and he has to register on the sex offender registry. I'm doing much better now. My schooling was only a little bit affected, but nothing too bad, and I'm on summer break again. My sister and I are both close still, we are both in therapy, and I'm getting through things day by day. I'm currently writing this from home, and I'm flying out to London next week to see my boyfriend. I will try to not forget this page again. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I've heard of bad neighbor stories before, but I've always been a skeptic of the drama. It was not until last month that I became a full believer on how awful people really could be. For some context, I live in the sticks, about an hour from the nearest town, with only one neighbor, which suits me fine as we originally moved out here for some peace and quiet after all. My neighbor, Dave, on the other hand, seemed to exist for the sole purpose of disturbing that peace. Dave was a middle-aged divorcee who lived alone after his family cut ties with him, staying busy by managing his own construction company. His headquarters was his own house. Out of pity, we tried to socialize with him when we initially moved in, but quickly found him to be an irritable, aggressive, and dangerously unpredictable person to be around, so we decided to avoid him as best as we could. Although we maintained as little contact as we could, that didn't stop Dave from picking fights over petty grievances. One week it was the size of our trash bins, another time it was that our hedges were cut a few inches too short for his liking. Basically, the neighbor liked to argue and would find any reason to do so. Naturally, this got old fast, and I eventually started to hold my own against the guy. What had started as fairly sporadic disagreements escalated into a Cold War stalemate, maintaining an uneasy truce of mutual disgust. He didn't like me, I didn't like him, and that was fine for a while. Following my casual Saturday routine, I left very early for a trip into town for groceries. The morning was already a toasty 70 Fahrenheit and was only expected to get hotter as the day went by. So I made sure not to waste any time on my return journey as I watched the ice cream melt at a worrying pace. I breathed a sigh of relief as I navigated the familiar maze of country roads, knowing that I would soon be home and could take it easy. As I reached the end of my driveway, however, I found my path was blocked by a large semi-truck with the logo of Dave's Construction. I sat and waited for a minute as my patience wore thin in the heat. I honked my horn a few times, but only until I got out for a closer look did I realize that it was empty inside. I knocked furiously on his door, but was also left unanswered. An angry and dehydrated mind now started to wonder whether he had left it there intentionally as a prank or mild annoyance. Regardless of his intentions, I no longer had any option but to remove the vehicle by myself. By the time I had finished unpacking my groceries an hour later, my ice cream was a puddle that stained the trunk of my car. I considered looking for Dave again, but I was already in a foul mood and decided I wanted a little revenge instead. The tow truck arrived shortly after and spirited away the obstacle, leaving me finally with access to my own driveway. I gave the tow operator Dave's cell phone number and I posted a note about it on his door. I didn't think I owed him any more than that given the situation that he put me in. And of course, I was more than happy to land him with the $200 call-out fee on top of the $35 fine for taking it back from the impound. With that stressful situation behind me, I sat outside with a cold beer to unwind for the evening. A few hours later, I was getting ready to call it a night when I heard footsteps circling my house. I quietly rose from my chair to investigate the noise, but instead it came to me. A tall silhouetted man appeared in my backyard and marched towards me, ignoring my attempts to keep a distance from the stranger. As they came into reach of the fire, I realized it was actually my neighbor Dave and he was royally pissed off. Not that I needed help finding out. Dave stormed up to me, forcing me back into my chair as he loomed over me. He was furious that I had his truck towed away and demanded that I paid him the $235 back that I had cost him. I interrupted him mid-sentence as I rose to my feet to bite back at him. To my surprise, Dave had no idea why I had his truck moved and quote, "I can park it wherever the hell I like." This continued for a few minutes after before I realized talking to a brick wall would be more beneficial. With neither of us getting what we wanted in the end, I went back inside and he stormed off shouting about revenge and getting even. In the days that followed my neighbor's quest for revenge, I heard very little from him, which should have eased my nerves, but it worried me even more. One morning while I was in the office, I got a few doorcam notifications from a very stubborn visitor. I opened the app ready to seize Dave staring back at me, but instead it was a police officer. After explaining my absence, I hurried home for a conversation that was apparently better had directly. The officer explained that I was a named suspect in a case of vandalism in the area, though he kept the details vague. I knew there was only one other person nearby. According to the report, the victim's car had been attacked and graffitied, with a suspicious individual matching my description witness leaving the scene. While my alibi, being that I also lived alone, left gaps in my timeline after providing a copy of my doorcam footage, they left without showing concern. A tense afternoon passed as I wondered when or if anyone would contact me again for questioning. I called the local precinct for a status update, not expecting to hear much about it, but was pleasantly relieved to find the case had been closed and dropped. If he was gonna try and frame me, why didn't he wait until I was at home to do so? With his revenge foiled but his own stupidity, I expected that he would give up on the idea, and that would be that. When I opened a padded envelope from my mailbox a week later, mentioning details of a lawsuit, my stress levels hit the roof. I quickly got in touch with my lawyer to discuss the matter, arriving at his office 2 hours early because I was too worried to do anything else. After explaining the situation to him, he was able to ease my concerns and promised to handle the matter, leaving me slightly but not totally relaxed. I was less than thrilled with the idea of now having to wait a whole weekend before hearing back from him, though I did my best to keep myself occupied and out of sight. After a night of restless sleep, I dragged myself out of bed Monday morning and waited by the phone for his office to happen. I must have dozed off as I was later woken by a phone call. My lawyer had rang to tell me the lawsuit had been rejected by the court due to insufficient charges. I did not fully understand the details, but I was ecstatic nonetheless. Dave was out for blood and I knew now he would not stop until he had it. This time I didn't hesitate, I would have to fight fire with fire. With my lawyer in agreement, I filed a counterclaim on the lawsuit against Dave for harassment and defamation. Despite my initial confidence, the legal battle was anything but smooth, and through the silver tongue of his two-bit lawyer, it even started to look like Dave was gonna worm his way out of justice. Hoping to build on my case, I did some digging around. I found and hired a private detective who came to meet me in town a few days later with his results. The PI had uncovered a lot of dirt on my neighbor, adding tax evasion from his construction company into the mix. With all the evidence of his wrongdoings forced out into the open, the court had no difficulty in deciding their verdict. To my surprise, Dave's construction company is still thriving next door. I heard his estranged family may have taken over his success in his absence. They never went to support him in court, so I doubt they will visit him in jail either. I guess if he was not such a jerk, I might feel sorry for him. On the other hand, my driveway is now free and clear, and I have neighbors that know what happens if they try to mess with me. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.